Haram represents. Our religion rejects everything these evil characters project in the name of Islam. We must not be silent because Boko Haram represents evil. Now, what does that mean? This exhortation that has been echoed by emirs, Islamic scholars, Islamic councils, apologists, and lawgivers. They have taken the lead. The least that the intimately connected people of the book, publishers, teachers, thinkers of all faiths can contribute is to exploit opportunities such as the market of ideas to spread the word in all possible forms, most especially where an opportunity is provided through the ongoing histories of those who failed to rally their mind when the encroachment on the space of ideas was still in infancy. What these voices have expressed is simply that the edicts of Boko Haram, in short, its fatwas, are worthless and dangerous. That sentence, the very words of Benoune's title, are the words that the Algerians hurled in the face of their murderous fundamentalists as they battled for over 10 years for their freedom. The lesson is we must go beyond the book cover to learn what lies within. Are we, if we fail to do this, aware that we'll be proposing the contrary, reassuring Boko Haram that their fatwas apply to our humanity? Whose fatwa then is under reference? Then why are we gathered here? Boko Haram anathemizes books, destroys books, and destroys their institutions. But we are here in a surrounding of and celebration of books. Yes, indeed, the book fair is itself a statement of rejection, a powerful statement of the rejection of Boko Haram's fatwa. It is an implicit yet overt gesture of contempt for the delusions of grandeur of that movement and its avocation. But then, a book fair, to continue my argument, owes to itself the full complement of what renders it itself. Its mission as an agency of enlightenment cannot be compromised by the dictum, implicit or overt, of whatever makes no disguise of its contrary mission, which is to manifest itself as an enemy of enlightenment. And we must go further. We must take the battle to extremists. An army that remains in the barracks, even when assailed by enemy forces, is clearly no army at all, but a sitting duck. Now, we cannot recommend that we all sign up and join the uniformed corps, whether in the Air Force or as foot soldiers, as they make their rescue sorties into caves and swamps of the forest, not only to destroy the enemy, but now, primarily, to rescue our children who are forcibly abducted from their learning institutions to become, let's not beat it about the bush, let us face the ultimate horror that confronts us, so we all know how this affects us, to become sex slaves of any unwashed dog. To remain in denial at this moment is to betray our own offspring, our children, and to consolidate the ongoing crimes against our humanity. We passed that point decades ago. Now we must take the battle to the enemy. And this is no idle rhetoric. The battlefield stretches beyond the physical terrain. We are engaged in the battle for the mind, which is where it all begins and where it will eventually be concluded. And that battlefield is not simply one of imagination, it is one of memory and history of what we were and what we would like to return to be. That battlefield is ours. It demands a consciousness of the histories of others, what happened to others in the past, how they responded, and with what results. My dear colleagues, there may be hundreds of soldiers out in the forests of Borno, Adamawa, Yobe, but this battle is very much our own, primarily ours. And we should display as much courage as those who are dying in defense of what we value most, as writers and consumers of literature. At least, I like to believe so. To believe that nothing comes close to our fulfillment as the liberation of the mind wherever the mind is threatened with closure. This is what is at stake. at the core of this affliction. It is this that is central to the predicament of our school pupils wandering through dangerous forests at this moment through no crime that they have committed. We send them to school, we must bring them back to school. Why did this nation move out of its borders? Why did this nation move out of its borders to join other West African nations to stop these extremists whose boastful agenda is to cut a bloody swathe through the communities of learning, of tolerance, and peaceful cohabitation? What does the united world say to the agents of heartbreak and dismay when religion, power, and mayhem is unleashed against innocent workers gathered at prime time in a motor park to resume foraging for daily livelihood? What, in short, do book fairs say as we learn of the steady, remorseless assault on the seminal places of culture and book learning? The ancient monumental statues of Buddha, the historic monuments and tombs of Timbuktu, our ancient manuscripts, repositories of learning that predate the masterpieces of Europe's medieval age. The true Muslims, the authentic strain of the descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, pride themselves as people of the book. Hence those lovingly preserved manuscripts of Timbuktu, treasured and tendered through generations of scholars and believers. In such circumstances, what side do we take when children are slaughtered in their school dormitories, their teachers and parents hunted down for daring to disobey the Philistinic fatwa that forbids learning? Do we remain in our barracks? For it has not just begun, We're speaking of the prosecution of war that 4 years ago already had moved to its present blatant intensity. That it has attained its now staggering figures of casualties that numb our humanity with the abduction of female pupils to serve as beasts of burden for the enemy does not disguise past failures, self-inculpating silence, and even tacit collaboration in places. Try as we might, we cannot insulate ourselves from the horrors to which our children are daily exposed, fearful to undergo, even for our own instruction, the vicarious anguish of others. First, it is futile. The ill wind currently rattling our windows will shortly blow down the flimsy structures we erect as protection around our heads. Symbolism is all very well. Yes, indeed, no one should underestimate the value of this symbolic enclave, whose mandate we shall be acting out over the next 7 days. The palpable products, however, albeit of words only, that emerge from within this symbol is what constitutes the durable product, reinforcing morale and conveying to the maimed, the traumatized, the widowed, and the orphaned, the suddenly impoverished, displaced, the bereaved, and other categories of victims, a sliver of reassurance that they are not abandoned. And why should they feel abandoned in the first place? Why not, indeed? Permit me to impose on the leadership of this nation a simple, straightforward exercise in empathy. I want you to imagine yourself in a hospital ward, one among the over 1,000 victims of so many carnages in Nigeria, but most lately in Yanya. You remember that the actual dead and wounded are not the only casualties. I refer you to J.P. Clark's Casualties for a penetrating look at the reality of the walking wounded. However, let's take it step by step. Let us remain within the territory of the easily accessible physical casualties. So imagine that you're one of them. On that hospital bed, you find yourself in the role of playing host to the high and mighty. You are immobilized, speechless, and incapable perhaps of motion except through your eyelids. The guests stream in one by one, faces swathed in concern. Local government councillors, ministers, legislators, governors and prelates, all the way to the very pinnacle of power, the nation's president. They even make promises, free medical treatment, rehabilitation, etc., etc. Then they take their leave. Your spirits are uplifted, you no longer feel depressed and abandoned. considerately mounted eye level on the opposite wall, the television set